I don't think they should do that. I would advise Iran not to start their nuclear program. I would advise them very strongly. If they do, there will be very severe consequence.
All right, that in response to a question a few minutes ago from a reporter about the Iranian lawmakers. These are lawmakers. These aren't, protesters outside government building. These are the guys running the show in the government buildings, protesting Donald Trump and saying death to America on what they call an unjustified reversal on that agreement cobbled together by the United States and 5 other countries. To California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell. Didn't this little episode or theater in Tehran, a congressman, maybe prove the president's point? These are the people who we apparently trusted. What do you say?
No, Neil, and good afternoon. I think it actually proves the point of the people who believed in the deal, which was we got these extremists to allow monitors and inspectors into their country, and we took a program that was 3 months away from having a nuclear weapon to over a year away. So now these fanatics are going to go back to having a nuclear weapon, and the president is putting us on a path to war. And Neil, I just want to say, it is a fantasy world if the president thinks that he could get those individuals to do something better than what President Obama and John Kerry got them to agree to over years of negotiation. And so it's revisionist history, and it makes us all less safe.
That might be the case, but I remember when they were putting that deal together, sir, it was being debated in the United States Senate. It didn't get past a resolution in the House, but 4 Democratic senators, including Chuck Schumer, voted against it. Now, obviously, and I know how politics works. I mean, they're condemning the president's move now, but 5 countries besides ourselves signed on to that agreement. Many, many more were asked and didn't want to, including virtually every major player in the Middle East. They're in that neighborhood. You would think they know their neighborhood better than we do. And they wanted nothing to do with it. What do you think of that?
Well, I fear that this will now allow, Saudi Arabia and Egypt and other countries to pursue nuclear weapons because they're going to be threatened by Iran restarting their program. Again, this program was working. I went over to Vienna just a couple of months ago to get briefed by our United Nations mission over there, and I was there the day before the IAEA certified that Iran was in compliance. Iran is a bad actor. There's other issues that should be addressed through sanctions and pressure from our allies, but on this discrete issue of whether or not they had a nuclear weapon, it was working. And I would rather have an Iran that we're addressing on their ballistic missile program or their funding of terrorism without a nuclear weapon than trying to address those issues with, oh, by the way, 3 months out or even closer to having a nuclear weapon.
If I could switch gears, sir, and I appreciate your insight there, but on North Korea and these hostages that were released and coming back with Michael Pompeo, the CIA, former director, now, of course, Secretary of State. What do you think of the gesture on the part of the North Koreans? Some are interpreting this as a promising sign for the talks themselves. Others are very cynical, don't trust the North Koreans. What about you?
So far, I say job well done to the president and Secretary Pompeo. Those are U.S. citizens. We wanted them home, and we should take that as a positive sign that the North Koreans would release them. Now, going into this summit, President Trump is going to have to be prepared, and he's also going to have to be able to listen and understand how Kim Jong-un sees himself in the world and whether he is open to verification and monitoring, as we will need to do to make sure that they are doing something they've never done before, which is dismantling their nuclear program. I will also say, though, Neil, it's hard to look the North Korean dictator in the eye and say, we're going to strike a deal with you when we just walked away from a deal that we struck with another country. I don't think that will be lost on him.
All right, well, you could argue that it was not a treaty, and you could also argue that if the North Koreans were concerned about that, they would not have released these hostages. They obviously went through with that, so maybe they're not as worried as you.
Yeah, it's hard to tell, what they are thinking and how they are viewing this. We know that they have a long track record of not following through on promises, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try this new approach. I support this new approach by President Trump, as I said, but make sure that we can articulate what the objectives are for us, for our allies, and what we expect of the North Koreans.
Congressman Swalwell, always enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you for taking the time.
Same here.